Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from theresistanceradio.com, the Resistance podcast. You can go and check it out on theresistanceradio.com and subscribe to the podcast. Tell all your friends, neighbors, relatives, and dog cats. Get them all subscribed to the podcast. We're going to be having, it's election season. If you haven't noticed, you may have seen it in the news. There's something happening in November that hopefully will be another blue wave like we had in 2018. I'm excited for it. I can't wait. In fact, I'm dying to get to it because every day just seems to be a new low in the Trump administration. But aside from that, we have great guests on the show coming up and great interviews of people that are running for office in the Democratic Party. We're going to get a chance to get the perspective, and you're going to get some ideas on how to help them get the vote out so that we can change what's going on in this country for the better. Today we have a most excellent guest. She's Stormy Simon, and Stormy is a visionary female leader. She's an e-commerce pioneer, corporate executive, cannabis activist, and a 2020 candidate for the District 21 seat in the Utah State House of Representatives. Stormy brings a powerful perspective to state governance, global commerce, and advancement of equity in America. Stormy's weekly podcast, Lunch with Stormy, features conversations with tastemakers and unexpected thought leaders, delving into topics including reinvention, unique business practices, and the role of modern spirituality that plays in our lives. Welcome to the show, Stormy. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Awesome sauce. We got a fellow podcaster on here. Cool. So Stormy, give us your .com so people can check them out, look you up on the inner tubes.
Well, I just launched votestormysimon.com. That'll be for the campaign. And then I also have stormysimon.com.
Awesome.
Super
people can
simple.
check out your podcast and hear more about everything, things that you're doing.
Yes.
So this is your first run for office. Is that correct?
It is.
Awesome
Yep.
sauce. And, I'm still learning the districts for the state of Utah. So what district is this in?
This is Tooele County and
Mhm.
Tooele City. There's a couple districts out here.
Mhm.
And that's it. Last year, it was the 7th fastest growing county in the United States.
I would imagine so. Now, does Grantsville fit into your district, or is that in a separate den?
Separate.
Separate. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
And I know Tooele had a lot of room to grow. Last time I was up here in the state about 20 years ago, there was, Tooele was a place a lot of people would move to. The real estate was usually a little bit more inexpensive out there. There's more room and stuff. I've spent a lot of time in old downtown Tooele, which is
Yep.
kind of charming. I don't know if it's changed much. Have they?
It hasn't changed much, but it's
nice.
still really cute.
Yeah.
It's got some empty buildings up there for folks to move into and start businesses.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
remember it had a cute little downtown. I remember the bowling alley, and just a wonderful place. And I imagine, you guys had so much land to grow on. It's crazy. So I imagine that's all homes now, huh?
There's plenty that are homes. Yep. There's so many homes that have come up. It's really a bedroom community. Commerce hasn't hit. There's a Walmart, there's a Home Depot. But we need some commerce out here.
Well, there you go. Well, you can help engender that and bring it to the thing. So it's exciting to have you on. It's exciting to see women running for office, especially in the state of Utah. I come from Las Vegas, where we recently put into office the largest group of women in the legislature. Think of any legislature in the states of America. And they are doing the most amazing things. They are helping kids. They're dealing with the future, education, everything that healthcare, all that good stuff. And I started a campaign. I don't know if I really made a difference, but I did on through my social channels in Las Vegas right before 2018. I'd seen a picture of like all the white guys who were in Congress. And I was like, this doesn't look like America. This is why we have these problems for 240 years, 242, 44, whatever.
A lot.
Yeah. So it's time for change. So I told all my friends, started making posts. I said, I'm voting all women, straight ticket, down the line, unless you're GOP. And I even voted for judges. Like if there was a guy judge and a girl judge, and they normally don't have parties, I was like, woman, because women are more empathetic. They care about kids. They care about the future. They're not a bunch of warlike idiots like a bunch of us guys, because I know how guys are, because I'm a guy. And I'm like, it's time for change. Enough crap, enough $8 trillion going to Iraq for every war. Let's put women in office. Let's get education. Let's get better health care. Let's get better daycare and all those sort of stuffs. And we did it. And the results are amazing. So I'm really excited to see you running for office and other people.
Well, thanks for doing all of that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was all, like everyone, hey, Chris is voting all women. We should do that too.
We should do what Chris does.
But I did as much as I could, and I even posted a picture of my ballot card. I'm like, I'm voting all women. So I would like you guys all to. So let's get to know you better, so that those of the folks in the Utah audience and the people in Tooele can get to know you better. What's your origin story? How did you come up? How did you get to Utah, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so I was born just outside of Chicago, about 12 miles from Gary, or 12 minutes from Gary, Indiana. So a very cultured area, right? We were right next door to the projects. I grew up my first 4 or 5 years of my life with Black children and white children, and that's where we started. We moved to Utah, in fact, to Tooele. I grew up here too, when I was just a small girl, and it was almost exact opposite of where we had been living in Hammond, Indiana. We came to Utah. My family was not LDS. In fact, we have 6 people in my family, and there were 4 religions, and one of them is LDS.
I'm sorry to laugh, but
no, it's beautiful. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Is it? Well, everybody gets along pretty good?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Everyone was respected for where they felt comfortable.
Wow,
I was the baby of the family, and I attended many churches of many religions, and opted for my own spiritual path of, maybe integration, but definitely developing my own relationship in spirituality and being able to follow that. But I think what makes it so beautiful is my parents encouraging us to seek individuality and be comfortable and not putting us in a box, as they would say, and dictating how our relationships with God or spirituality would work, but really just finding where we felt most comfortable and could find faith.
That's awesome. And I'm sorry for laughing, but I'm taking that from my own crisis with my family. There's only one religion in my family. I mean, technically there's 2 because I'm an atheist, but there's only one religion. And hell, we can't get the people that are in the one religion to get along with each other. You know what I mean? So the fact you guys had 4, that's awesome. And you all got along. That shows some greatness of some type, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think my parents were, my mom was raised, in fact, she spent time in Tennessee as a child, and she went to those churches where the tent revivals.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there was a little bit of scarring that happened there for her, that she really wanted us to be able to go where we felt comfortable, go where, you feel connected. And that's what we all did. So my dad was Methodist, my mom was Protestant, Catholic sister, Catholic brother, LDS brother.
Well, there you go. Yeah. You got a collection there. I mean, if you ever want to, flip, you got somebody to go to that can, take.
Right. There's not a lot of religions that do bad things.
That's true. It's more the people, I think, that are not all the people, but some of the people that are the problem in any given religion.
Right. And not necessarily due to the religion, but due to individuality.
Yeah. Human nature doesn't always have the best of intentions, I suppose, in and of itself, regardless.
We just keep trying.
Yeah. I always haven't been the best person. I'm an atheist. So there you
go. You'd be loved in my family. We would love you. Right? You'd be welcome there. The discussions would be fine. Yes.
Yeah. I'll be the token atheist. Thanksgiving dinner. There you go. We invited the atheist guy. He's over there. Anyway, so it sounds like you have a great spirituality. You have an understanding. Spirituality, of course, is a big thing in Utah. And so what made you want to run for office? What made you come down this pathway of going, hey, I want to, make some changes in the world of Utah?
I never would have guessed it. One, I never felt like I was qualified.
Mhm.
or that I could do it, or that I looked like the politicians that I had seen growing up or even see today. But I had a great career in Utah with Overstock.com. And in 2001, I started there as a temp employee. I don't have a traditional education, didn't go to college. Started as a temp employee, and over the course of 15 years, built just about every department, and became president and a member of the board.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
so through
awesome.
that, thank you, we brought many jobs to Utah, and we had the most diverse workforce that I believe Utah had seen at the time.
Mhm.
And, we welcomed any department I led, which was almost all of them, and eventually as president, all of them. But everyone was welcome there. It didn't matter if you had green hair, piercings, your, sexual preference didn't come into play ever. It was just about hard work, and I was living proof there that if you did the hard work, you could progress and succeed there.
Well, that's
And
awesome,
so,
Sauce.
thank you.
I
I
remember
did,
when I was leaving 20 years ago, Overstock was just starting out. And I was starting to see
yeah,
the ads, and I was like, this looks interesting.
yeah, I wrote the Discover the Secret of the Big O ad.
Oh, the Big O. I
Hmm.
remember that ad campaign.
Yes.
That's what really stuck out. And you were just like, okay, there's
You should have been in that pitch meeting,
yeah.
when you're like, no, it's Discover the Secret of the Big O. And with that, people will remember Overstock. And it worked. We doubled in revenue over the course of 18 months, and it really put us on the map and kept us in the big leagues with Amazon and eBay.
Yeah.
And so
Is Overstock still on its own, or did it get bought out or anything? Or
that's a public company. We went
yeah.
public, or they went public now in 2002,
Wow.
and they're still here in Utah.
There you go. A great
Yeah.
Utah success story. But
Yes.
so you're used to managing people, you're used to dealing with agendas and all these sort of things that you would need in office to run for government to,
Yes.
help facilitate, all the multifaceted agendas and different things that you want to take and do. What are some, so you just decide to flip the switch and go, hey,
No, well,
okay.
first, so I leave Overstock because the cannabis industry was happening.
Hmm.
And my parents were both blue collar workers. My mother worked for the Army Depot out here in Tooele, and my dad worked for what was called National Lead, eventually Amax, and something else, but it's a magnesium company out here. But they had the same jobs for 30 years. And I always thought I wanted to do more. And while the Overstock e-commerce career was more than I ever could have dreamed of, when cannabis started becoming legal and the prohibition ending for alcohol, or any kind of prohibition ending, really appealed to me as history being written. And I thought, I need to know what's going on. Colorado had decided to go adult usage in addition to medicinal. And I left Overstock for more than just that reason. Obviously, 15 years later, we'd gone from 18 million when I started to almost $2 billion,
Wow.
and held hands every step of the way through that. I was just curious as to how that would work. So I moved to Denver and learned about the agricultural portion of growing the plant, the medicinal side. I worked with the company I worked with only had medicinal dispensaries. And that changed me as an advocate, although I do support civil rights regarding plants and the ownership of a plant.
Mm-hmm.
But the medicinal benefits really appealed to me, and I started down that path and ultimately became the CEO of High Times,
Oh, wow. The magazine?
which I left. Yes.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. And I left there. I only was with them about 5 months, but I was on the board for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. That's
Um,
awesome.
that advocacy, and then seeing the bureaucratic way that these businesses were being treated, having come from a very corporate life and a very, welcomed business, right? The nation loved e-commerce. They wanted to make it work for e-commerce. Things adapted for e-commerce. And here with cannabis, you saw these farmers, people who were really trying to believed in this as a medicine, not the cartel, not the bad guys, but
Mm-hmm.
real people.
Mm-hmm.
That, farming is one of our first occupations for this nation.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we weren't supporting them. We're creating heavy, heavy taxes. We were still haven't said this isn't a Schedule I drug. It's right up there with heroin. Heroin.
Yeah.
And, seeing and learning about the whys of cannabis, like what happened with marijuana? How did this happen? How are all these people in prison for nonviolent crimes? Why is it a majority of Black and brown people? What happened? And then learning that story and feeling compelled to try to make a difference in some way, shape, or form. Then Utah with our Prop 2, which was the cannabis medical bill, 53% of Utahns voted, yes, we support that proposition the way it stands. Afterwards, the governor, the church, and the state legislature came together and said, you know what, we understand your vote, but we're going to do better. And we're going to alter it and compromise it. And that's what they did. The other thing they did was hand out 4 of the 8 licenses to out-of-staters, when our state is full of agriculturalists that are amazing. Now, cannabis was a piece of why I started running. It's not my platform. It is legal. The fight is over. We can adjust things as patients need here, but I call it a win in the state of Utah outside of people voting. And then the governor and the legislature stepping in and saying, you know what, we know better. Turns out they did that 2 more times with gerrymandering or redistricting, as well as a Medicaid law or bill. And the people will vote, and then they come in and say, well, we'll make it to how we think the people should have voted. And I don't like that. I think the people vote. When the people vote, we need to listen, or the government needs to listen, and that's what we're built on. So that was a big piece of my eye-opening and understanding of how the government can really play in a state and how they should play in a state. The other part is in Utah, it's not as diversified as one might want.
In people?
Yeah.
And culture?
Diversified in government. And for me, I'm running in a county that has been 35% a Democratic vote for at least the past 10 years. It's been 10 years since a Democrat has held this office or this seat, 30 years since it's been a woman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I thought it is time to raise my hand and participate in this country, given that, and let's not forget, the current state of the union, the current state of events, the past 4 years. It's time to raise our hands. It is time to be inspired. It finally hit me that of course I'm qualified for this. I am a citizen of the United States, and right there, that gives me the right to run. I may not look the same as a lot of politicians, but that doesn't matter. You're not in politics based on look. It's not about your religion. It is about participating as a United States citizen. And that's really what did it, is just the thought that I want change. So what am I going to do? Sit here and talk about how badly I want it, or all the things that people should do? It's like, no, raise your hand, take action, and see if I can do those things.
And that's possible. Awesome. You bring up a good point, and I swear to God, I've heard about this or someone wrote about this. But one of the things they talked about before the blue wave in 2018, or the discussion of that whole thing that happened, where we saw so many women, so many people that weren't your look like the average white male old guy politician coming in and winning office, and people that were bartenders, people that were from all walks of life coming in and not really overthrowing, but changing the makeup of it. And one of the elements was, and you mentioned this earlier, is they just didn't see themselves like, I don't look like a politician, I don't act like a politician. I've been known to say I don't want to become a politician, I don't have to lie to people. I'd be a horrible politician because I just tell you the straight ass truth. And
that's what we need. That's
what we need. Yeah.
Well, the truth is what the truth is.
Yeah. And I mean, people are smart now. I mean, they can go on the internet for the most part, and they can find the truth out about stuff if they want to find the truth out about stuff. And so they know when they're being lied to. And I think people have gotten sick of that relationship they've had with their politicians. So I'm excited that more people like yourself are coming out. We're seeing more women in politics now. When you look at the pictures of the legislatures, I haven't looked at Utah's. I'm pretty sure I know what that looks like. But hopefully the future one in 2020 is going to look more like America. But I want it to look more like America. And this is really what our founders wanted when they created the Constitution and the legislative bodies, is they wanted people to come from all walks of life to contribute to America. They wanted scientists. They didn't, lawyers are
Can
good
I
people,
just
but they didn't
say,
want all lawyers.
at the time the Constitution was written and signed,
Hmm.
women couldn't vote.
Yeah, that's true. Huh?
I'm not sure black men could vote,
I don't think
which
so.
meant black people couldn't vote. So I do believe in our Constitution, and I think it's great that that's what we founded ourselves on. But at the time it was signed, I'm not sure that that's what was really wanted.
Yeah. Good point.
Good Lord, I don't want to go up against our founding fathers.
Well, I think they just wanted
However,
they wanted people from all walks of life, the smartest people, the best people, and now that we've got women voting and women showing up, well, we do.
yeah, well, it's we've only been voting for 100 years.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting, something to think about. But our Constitution wasn't, women didn't chime in. People of color didn't chime in.
Well, I'm glad they are now, because I want to see a just a makeup that when I look at legislative body of state or federal, it looks like America. It looks like if I walk down the street, it looks like the group of people that are there, because to me, that's what it really should represent. People that come from all walks of life. One of the most frustrating things to see, I can't imagine being a woman, but one of the most frustrating things to see is these legislative bodies that a bunch of old white dudes who have no idea how a woman's body works, clearly from some of the discussions they have, and they're making decisions about women's bodies. And it's like, I remember there's this famous picture, I think, of the Trump or administration early on, where they're making decisions about women's health care, and there's like no women in the room, and you're just like, yeah, that doesn't seem right at all.
No, it's insulting.
Mm-hmm.
It's insulting as a woman.
So what are some of the things that you hope to do in Tooele? What are some of the things you'd like to see changed in your agenda that maybe your competitor is not doing currently, that's the incumbent, I guess, in Tooele?
Yeah, well, really we're going to make laws for the state. And there's a few things. For education, per pupil, Utah ranks 51st in how much we spend per pupil. Mm-hmm. Now, what does that matter in our test scores? Does that matter in things? Absolutely, it does. No matter how well we do, that's still a factor. So learning a lot about why that is, and then finding ways to make it better. Investing in our students across the country. I'll be focused in Utah, so that's where I'm going to spend my time. But getting more to them. Figuring out, holding teachers accountable, really, for the progress of our students and where they rank. I know when building Overstock, when people didn't do a good job, we helped them with plans to do better. I love teachers, right? Yeah. Teachers are great. I think they should be paid more.
Definitely.
But if your students aren't progressing and passing, we can help you do better, and I spent my corporate years doing that.
Yeah.
Helping people progress in their career, giving them the tools they need to succeed. And success in that term is, how do your pupils do? The other thing Utah ranks last in is gender pay. Mm-hmm. So women make about 70% of what men make. That's a big deal to me. Mm-hmm. One of the things I did as president at Overstock was increase executive leadership at the table. So vice presidents, senior vice presidents that sat down at the executive team every week, from 7% to 33%.
Wow.
We had an executive team of 7% female. When I left, it was 33%. Unfortunately, that went way down after. I'm not sure where they're at today, but with my leaving, so did many of the females. Addressing that pay, the fact that we're in 2020, this much later, that is still an issue. And, I don't want to be in a state where we rank last at anything.
Mm-hmm.
I want to win.
And one of the things that I've heard from some of the other candidates is Utah is one of the few states that doesn't have like a minimum pay or a diversitive pay sort of demand if you get if you get contracts from the state. Like if you're like, say, a construction company or some sort of company that gets a state contract, unlike the federal government that says you have to have diversity and you've got to have a guaranteed minimum pay, Utah doesn't have that, which isn't fair to a lot of people.
Well, it's not fair at all.
Yeah.
And in Utah, our people of color, it's a low number. I think 1% of our state is Black, 10% maybe Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a low number, and that's nobody's fault right now.
Yeah, but it's
nobody's
important
fault, but it's still to be acknowledged, right? It's important that we continue to bring diversity to our state and make sure it's comfortable and equitable.
One of the other issues in Utah is we're really low on healthcare, quality of healthcare. Doesn't help that the Attorney General is aligning with the Trump administration to overthrow Obamacare in the middle of a pandemic, which boggles the fuck.
Right.
All
of those things.
It's just insane. I mean, people, if they get laid off, which they're going to they're not going to be able to pay their COBRAs. They're not going to pay their health care. They're not going to have the protection of Obamacare if Supreme Court rules against it, of pre-existing conditions, which everyone's going to have from COVID-19. I mean, there's going to be people that are going to be like getting cancer and they're going to be like, oh yeah, that COVID-19, that's pre-existing condition. Yeah, we don't have to cover that anymore. I mean, I'm really surprised that anyone in this state, with the massive families they have and the healthcare issues I'm sure they have, and with what's going on with the pandemic, hasn't turned the state blue before.
Healthcare, I think, for the nation is an issue. The costs that we pay, as well as taxes that we put out towards all kinds of things, right? The list of our taxes just gets longer and deeper and stronger. But this healthcare thing, it has to be addressed. Can we go Bernie Sanders? No, not with the flip of a switch. But to dig in and piece by piece, really figure out how to take care of our citizens, not just in Utah, but everywhere. This rich of a country shouldn't be having the problems we have in this regard. And undoing Obamacare, probably not a good idea right now, but taking the next steps to make it better. How about we take what we have, which was a great first start, and progressively get it better?
Yeah,
not unravel it, right? Just like any business plan. You start here, you evolve here, but you play a game when you're on the field. You're on the football teams will make the call and they'll say, this is how you should form, this is the formation, and this is what we should do. But once you're on the field and your opposing linebacker comes at you from a weird angle, you're going to have to make that judgment on the field. And I feel like we, with this administration, just want to say, we don't like it, it doesn't work. Now, whether they're right or wrong isn't necessarily the point. The point is we have something, and it is a beginning, and it's a good beginning. Yep. And we should take the next step versus say, well, I didn't like that guy, so I don't want to do anything he did. No, it's a great beginning. We can do it better and improve just like we do many things, but it's a little frustrating. It's so frustrating. I'm running for office.
and there's some other things that are going to be coming out with COVID. You're going to have a lot of layoffs. I mean, we're still in what I call the honeymoon phase of the financial crisis. We're not seeing the bankruptcies yet. July, a lot of states and cities have their no eviction policies expiring. A lot of people are going to be in the streets. In my state of Vegas, there's already people living out of cars because even though they qualified for unemployment, the unemployment office has been so overwhelmed, so behind in paying people, they haven't got their money and they've already lost their housing. And these are people that, they had a job, they did the right things, they paid in the system and everything else. and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get very bad. Hopefully the federal government will be I don't know, helping out some way or shape or form, but it's going to be dependent upon people like you in local areas, because all politics is local. And I hope a lot of people that are seeing what's going on aren't thinking, well, we're kind of in that la land, we're not seeing the high bankruptcies, we're not seeing the high evictions yet, but it will come. The layoffs will come. I know how this game works. I through 2008, I watched the world go down, and this is nothing like 2008. In 2008, we could still go to the stores, we could still go to casinos, we could still go do stuff. We could still show up to work if we had jobs. This is way freaking different, like off the map. One of the things that Karina Brown, the lieutenant governor candidate with Chris Peterson running for office, she was on the show, and she talked about how Utah has seen a stoppage of reports of child abuse and domestic violence. And the reason that's not happening is because kids aren't coming to school anymore. So they're not getting, they're not coming to school and saying, Daddy hits me or whatever. And we know that the state of staying home and, everyone being locked in a home probably doesn't make those situations of domestic violence or child abuse better. Probably makes them much worse. One of the things that Utah does is it's, bottom of the rank again for mental health. And a lot of people are going to need some mental health after this. I might need some.
Yes, we should all be seeking it now.
Yeah. So we're going to need legislators like yourself that can bring new ideas, that can bring a vision, that can help balance a budget. Because I'm sure you had to do some of the financials
all of them.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. When you're president, you got to, I know what that's like, juggling everything.
Yes.
And so we need people like that can bring new ideas, that can bring, not the same old, because the same old is what got us here. You know what I mean? And so we need new people. We need fresh voices. We need fresh ideas. We need people who are leaders and have leadership positions who can bring a fresh voice and who can represent all the voices for Utah to the office. I sound like I just declared I'm running for office, didn't I?
Do you want to join me? Oh. If I had a co-seat,
I'll join.
Would you take it with
I'll
me?
support you and join you, but I'm going to let you run for office. I'm not sure I'm going to pass the background check on.
This whole thing is unprecedented, right? That you should be able to pass the background check.
Well, I'll be able to pass the background check ethically, but I might have gone to a few strip clubs in Las Vegas, so that would probably haunt me. Like they'd be like, Chris was at,
Okay, so that's part of my thing. We all here's America with all our freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, you participated in a freedom. We're going to use that freedom against you while you run for office.
Yeah.
You participated in a private freedom, your own personal freedom.
Yeah. I swear too much. Utahns would never vote for me. That would ruin it. The swearing alone.
No, I feel like those are the judgments that need to go away. Swearing doesn't make you bad at policy making or make you bad at budgeting. If we have freedoms that would restrict you from running for office, then are they truly freedoms? Yeah. I supported cannabis. I've been an absolute supporter. We're still not federally recognized as a medicine. Will that work against me? Well, that would be tragic if it did.
Yeah.
That would be tragic that we would throw away my past experience, my life. When I was a mom at 17 years old. I was on welfare. I came off of welfare. I built a career. I worked really hard, and I took advantage of freedoms that the United States has already said are there for me and for you in the strip club world, right? freedoms of speech.
I think it's the swearing that would get to me. But yeah, somebody pull that out of my background. They'd be like, Chris was a bad boy once or twice. And but no, I fully support you doing what you're doing. The cannabis thing, one of the great things, and this is really what the state should be considering, is I watched Las Vegas or Nevada actually go through the recreational cannabis legalization, et cetera, and with my old age, I drank most of my life vodka, but there comes a point where it's just so abusive to your body, and And I switched to cannabis when it became legal in Las Vegas. And just the tax revenue alone for what it did for our schools and everything else. And after switching off of vodka, a lot of people have done that. Chelsea Handler quit drinking. A lot of people quit drinking and switched to cannabis. My acetaminophen bottle, the Tylenol bottle, sat
Yep.
sat untouched for like 6 months, and literally helped me with my pain, my old age aches and body issues and stuff. And I don't even like it that much, really, when it comes down to it on an edible scale. But I got to tell you, for pain, it really helps.
It really does. And this is a plant. Now,
Mhm.
think if we decided as a nation to really make plants part of our science
Yep.
and part of our pharmaceutical world,
Mhm.
where maybe everything that grows on this earth that we could grow as citizens has healing properties. And we've kind of buried that. And I believe cannabis is going to bring that to the forefront, because what people don't know is we have an endocannabinoid system
Mhm.
that was named in like 1991 or something. And it was named endocannabinoid because the construction of it, the way it works, mimics that of a
Mhm.
cannabis plant. Now, I'm
Mhm.
sure there's more scientific terms I can use and all kinds of stuff, but at the basic level, in a bite-sized chunk that everyone can understand, is we mimic each other. So it does make sense that, hey, maybe, and there's one psychoactive agent, it's the THC, but there's hundreds of other cannabinoids just floating around in this plant
Mhm.
that we have not studied and made available to us. But yes, absolutely, with pain. I came off all pharmaceuticals. I used to have to take something for sleep. I don't anymore. There's an
Mhm.
oil that you can take, or
Yeah.
that works for me. It doesn't work for everyone. I'm not going to say it's this miracle drug for everyone, but there have been miracles when using this plant as a medicine.
And I can
And
see, after using it for a while and seeing my Tylenol bottle go unused, I'm like, so that's why the pharmaceutical companies don't want me taking this stuff, because
yes, I mean,
they like their synthetic crap they make.
in states where cannabis has been legal, and I believe this is adult usage states as well, opioid prescriptions have dropped by 25%. In states where cannabis is allowed, opiate prescriptions drop by 25%. We've had a war against this plant, and yet
Mhm.
we have an opiate crisis that we don't even call a war. We call it a crisis. Well, we built it. Those were approved pills, approved prescriptions, all done in a legal manner. And then those numbers of Washington, Colorado, California, those are real numbers, and the data's coming in. The statistics are strong enough. There's enough relevant data to say that is an answer to it. And why, we fuddle around with, should we be really putting some resources behind this to save and adjust the way we might be taking medicine? The answer is yes. I mean, it's that simple. However, politics and bureaucracy live behind every answer.
I
And
mean,
that's where we get caught up.
it's been wonderful for me. My friends would always tell me about it, and I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, it works for pain. Okay, yeah, I'll just keep drinking my vodka." And in no way, shape, or I mean, it is in no way, shape, or form. How am I trying to say this? The stuff that I've done with vodka is
Yes.
horrendous and abusive and bad. And when you compare the two, and probably some of the stupidest stuff I've ever done on vodka, it does not compare. You don't even want to drink when you're high. I'll just sit here and just enjoy the walls. But for pain, for people that have issues with seizures and everything else, I would like to see it done. In fact, I hopefully, with what's going on with Black Lives Matter, we seem to be unwinding a lot of the racism, the systematic racism of our things. This is from the Nixon administration. I believe it was
Absolutely.
Earlman is actually quoted as saying, "We did this to target the African Americans, the Hispanics, and everybody else who was using it, because we knew if we created the drug war, we could persecute these people, put them in jail, and they wouldn't give Nixon a hard time." And
It
that's
actually started
really the
in the
creation of it.
30s. Harry Anslinger
Mm,
um, said horrible things about Black people in regards to marijuana, but in about 1935 on the Senate, when they were taking this plant away from us as a medicine, and the American Medical Association was begging to keep it because they knew we had not done the science.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they said terms like horrible quotes, but Google Harry Anslinger.
Okay.
And, part of that was hemp, which got bundled up in this, no THC value, not going to get you high, but creates textiles stronger than rayon.
Wow.
Paper, yet we cut down trees where you can plant a field, create a paper. And Hearst had the magazine. He had 27 publications at the time. And Hearst and Anslinger were buddies.
Mm-hmm.
And hemp was a threat to many industries: medicine, textiles, paper, concrete. The first Model T Ford was made with 10% hemp to support the farmers.
Oh, wow.
So it goes way back. It starts in the 30s. Nixon ties a bow on it in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And the current administration sits today afraid to undo something. I mean, it's a real question when so much data is supporting that this plant works as a medicine, so much science that's happened in other countries like Israel, and yet we still prohibit it federally. It just doesn't make any sense.
And I didn't start taking it until it became legal in Las Vegas. And I have not wanted to, they always sold it as a gateway drug to me when I was a kid. They're like, it's a gateway drug. And I have no interest in taking anything,
It's an
above and beyond
exit
that.
gate. It's an exit gate off of opiates. It's an exit gate from alcohol.
In fact, it actually has helped me quit drinking. Like, I've just quit drinking because the abuse, it's actually got me better in tune to my body, and I can actually feel the damage and just my body trying to recover. I mean, I can go out for a couple night drinks and I don't have to tie anything on. I don't have to go crazy, but I can still feel like 3 days later, just the issues with my body retaining water, and just feeling sluggish. I can feel it now. And so it was pretty good because I abused booze pretty good. I was an alcoholic, but I had a good time. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, you can. Yeah, you get to. That's been approved by.
I think my liver's got a Smirnoff label on it, but I had a pretty good time for 20 years. But no, I mean, but anyway, we this is turning into podcast.
So, have you tried any topicals?
I haven't tried topicals.
There's some good ones out there. You should give it a shot. You'll be surprised with how they work on some of your aches and pains, your joints.
I would imagine so. They works really good internally. I can microdose with it if I'm working throughout the day. I can do this. So hopefully Utahns get this, and the money from this stuff for taxing it and crap. Holy crap! I mean, we saw what happened in Nevada, and I think all the money goes to schools in Nevada. But the taxation of money that they got from making that legal, and the elimination of, criminals that were selling it on the side and stuff. All my friends who had drug dealer friends, that were operating illegally, they went out of business. So, this is one of those things that the time finally has come. And I've had so many friends that have been, they come from the war, so they're dealing with PTSD. And depression, seizures, all the other things. It really is just an amazing thing, and it's natural, which is crazy. So anything more we should know about what you want to do for the state of Utah, for the city of Tooele, the area of Tooele? I think it's a county, isn't it?
It is a county, yes.
There you
go. What I want to do for Tooele County is make sure their voice is heard for all Utahns. When you vote, it matters. When you vote, you're right. If something is proposed to you, you're right. The idea that, there's a group of people that go and know better, that's not true. We all know better. We all collectively as a voice get to make decisions, and that's what makes our country great. For the state of Utah, diversification, the issues that I spoke about, I'm proud that, we have medicinal cannabis for our residents, but I'd like to see the list of ailments a little longer. Veterans, you brought up veterans at the end. They hold a place dear in my heart. I did a lot of work with the Wounded Warrior Project. And I will always advocate for a veteran on any level. I want to bring a broader voice.
Mhm.
I want women to be a part of our government. I want to inspire people to also participate in a place where maybe you're not the majority, but you count and it
Mhm.
matters. And each of us, this idea of individual equality, which means I accept you. You drink vodka. I accept you. You went to strip clubs. I don't judge you for that. You are allowed to. It is not something you should feel shamed about. While we shame our country, our politicians, that poor woman that was running, I think, in New Jersey and had a little escapade with her husband. And, she shamed, is it Katie Hill? Is it
Was
Katie
she the
Hill?
California one?
Could be. I
Yeah.
get confused. But we look, and even in politics, we look to, we're raising our hand to participate in a really hard job and say, you know what? I'll be accountable for some of the direction of our state and our country. I will hold myself up and I will go try to make it a better world for my grandchildren
Mhm.
and my poor white sons,
Yeah.
But I'm going to do my best and try. And what does the, other sides do? They attack, they demean, and they try to shame. And I believe there's room for all of us, despite our mistakes, our imperfections, all the things. Those aren't really imperfections. They're what make us great. We're on a 242-year, whatever number we're on, experiment. We are, despite all of these things that have happened, we are a great nation, despite the disagreements to a pretty big degree of the current administration. We're a good nation. And number one of all these countries. And we've done something different. We brought everybody in. We welcomed everyone. And the fact that we've got along to this point is amazing. And when things like Black Lives Matter come up, we should listen and adjust. Listen and adjust. We can improve. And this 240-year experiment has gone pretty well. And we should all be proud of ourselves, despite the things we've done wrong, despite, I'm a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement. That is, I think, very important for a discussion to happen. But we need to listen. We
Yeah.
need to listen. Native Americans, we need to start listening. Maybe they're not the majority, but their voice matters. And that's what I hope the message can bring. I'm up against a very Republican county
Mhm.
and very conservative, but I consider myself also conservative,
Mhm.
fiscally conservative, and I own guns. I say
Mhm.
that. I own guns and I believe in the Second Amendment, with the exception of we have to listen to what's going wrong with it. There
Mhm.
are things going wrong with it, individuals abusing it. We have to keep our ears open. We
Yep.
have to be adjustable, adaptable, commonsensical, real people. You don't become a politician and all of a sudden become, a robot. No, you're still a real person,
Mhm.
and that's what I want to happen.
I really love what you're communicating there. I want to see this country come back and be less divisive. Donald Trump has done what every great politician, or not great, let's put take that word out.
Wow, edit.
What every evil politician has done is they've divided the electorate to win, and they've kept dividing the electorate. I don't want to own my GOP uh, uh, fellow Americans with trolling. I don't want to. If Biden
Right.
gets elected, I don't want to sit and own you every day and be like, "Yeah, Biden in your face." I want Biden and Democratic leaders like yourself to go into office and unite, bring us together. I don't want to be enemies with my fellow citizens anymore. I want us all to be Americans again, black, white, Hispanics, from other countries, et cetera, et cetera.
Different opinions, the idea that there's only a
Yeah.
two-party system with hundreds of millions of people and you have to choose one or the other.
Yeah.
But Trump has done one, he's got a few things. He still thinks it's all about him.
Yeah.
And that is a leader in our country is a big problem. It is not about him. If we're going to be in a, hierarchical, where a guy sits on top and then we're all, waiting for his word, and, hopefully it's a her word soon. But, the idea that he thinks it's all about him is so dangerous for all of us, whether you're Republican or Democrat, no matter where you sit on Black Lives Matter movement, where you sit on gender pay, Second Amendment. It is not about him.
Mm-hmm.
And may we never elect someone so selfish again.
Yeah. He's a malignant narcissist, and I was against Trump for a long time. I followed him from 1986. When I used to idolize him when The Art of the Deal came out, and then just watching him and following him over the years, it's pretty obvious what he's always been up to. Malignant narcissist. I mean, I think one thing we've learned is we need to have people that lead this country, that lead legislatures, whether they're state or federal, about people who care about other people and who aren't narcissists. I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen it yet, it's on the Chris Voss Show channels and then Resistance Radio. We reviewed the Unfit movie that's come out, where a bunch of psychiatrists sat down and talked about what Donald Trump's issues are. This being a sadist, being a malignant narcissist. We need people in this country that care about the Constitution, that have read the Constitution, that can read. And that, like you say, they want to include everybody, and they care about everybody, and they care about the ideal of what Americans about, and they try and bring us together. I've every president I've had, whether I voted for the GOP or whether I voted Democrat, I always felt like the presidents, even though I didn't always agree with them in policy, even though, we'd have arguments between me and my fellow Americans, I always felt like they represented me. They cared about me. Even though, sometimes, you're like, well, that really doesn't.
You didn't get your way. Sometimes it wasn't your way.
I didn't get my way, but I always felt like that guy protected me. Like when Russia came around, or some bad boy came around, or Osama bin Laden came around, I always knew they had my back. With this guy, it's just all about him. And if you study malignant narcissists, or if you ever have, I had 2 malignant Trump types in my life through business, so I knew exactly what sort of dude that guy was. I saw him coming in 2015. So hopefully everyone will get a chance to really think about their vote. I encourage everyone to register to vote. If Ashley Matthews, who is running out, I believe out in Kern, she was on the show, and she said people have to remember, if you've got to register to vote, and vote, because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and that's a real important point. That's
well said. It is important to vote. It's important, and it doesn't matter what party you're at. I was a registered Republican. I've been a registered Libertarian, and now I'm a Democrat, and I call that out because it's important to go with where you identify at the time. The idea of a two-party system is divisive by nature.
Yeah. You've got to vote for what's...
that wants to put things at war and pit against each other, to be on top all the time. It takes a two-party system, and it does exactly that. Yep. Puts them at war, demands somebody win or be right, when truly we just need to represent what's best for our country. And our country, the land doesn't go, hey, I'm a Republican. The land is just for us all.
Yep.
And that's
you bring up a good point. I mean, the Constitution wasn't made for one party. In fact, if anything, if I recall rightly, with the Madison Papers, they discouraged a party system. But I just want to go back to being Americans again, and I do want racism to end. That's something that's got to stop. That's been very
once
prevalent.
You put sunshine on something and you shine that light bright, that's the beginning of a great healing. I feel like that's where we are as the conversation is happening. It was real. All those things really. It was my lifetime. My mother was raised to be racist. I mean, it's one generation away, and I'm not ashamed of that. She wasn't ashamed of that. It was the way it was. Separate water fountains. That was a real thing.
Yeah.
Asking people to sit in the back of the bus when my mother could sit in the front. that was a real thing, and it was one generation away.
Yeah. And there's a lot that we have to deal with. We've had a lot of great guests over on the Chris Voss Show. And we've been talking about James Baldwin a lot. And I've gotten a chance to get to know James Baldwin much better. And he's really good at describing the African American experience in that age and what they had to deal with and everything else. In fact, we've got Eddie Glaude Jr., who's going to be on the show coming up on the 14th. He's going to be talking about his new book. And we'll be talking about James Baldwin, which is what his book is about. But having these conversations, listening, understanding, I always believed in America that if there was a part of, if you were American and you said, hey man, I'm really suffering and having some pain over here, we lifted you up. We went, okay, man, all right, let's help you out. We're all American here. That's what we do. You see that in the hurricanes in New Orleans. You saw that in Houston during the hurricanes. Everybody came together and went, how can we help you? You're an American. Let's lift each other up. Yeah. Let's be there for each other. And that's what we need to get back to in politics, this country. If you can look at Biden and go, okay, Biden and Trump, which is going to be better? And what you have to look at is who's the person who can take this concept of the republic, as you mentioned it, this experiment that is still fresh, that is still new, that is very volatile. And if you watch a lot of democracies fall, we are at a precipice at this point in time.
Yes.
And go, this is the person we want to have be the steward of this for the next 4 years, because that's really what that presidency is. We're giving them the stewardship, or the steward, giving them to be the steward of the American
this
Constitution.
Land.
Yeah. For 4 years, and to take care of it, to take care of the rule of law, to make sure it's fair to everybody, to make sure no one is above the law. And that's really important. So
that is what my hope is for our future, is that it's not about winning or losing. It's about working together. Do you call it a win when there's, I don't know how this is going to go with me as a politician when we talk like this, but yes, there's job creation, but there are people living in tents in, a street in Los Angeles, and it's deemed okay. Like you mentioned, Vegas folks living in their cars. There are now streets in California where it's like, hey, you can park here and live in your car, in your motorhome, which thank goodness that's allowed now, because everybody needs a place. However, the win happens when we have figured out how to use all this land, and there's so much land in Utah, to feed all the folks, whether they're in Los Angeles in a tent, and why is this country in a place where that's happening? What is it that we aren't doing right?
Yeah.
And, people can say, well, it's mental health. Okay, then let's address that.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy answer, and it's not a quick fix. But the idea of not taking the steps to fix it, but taking steps to expand it just doesn't work for me.
Well, I'd love to see you in office. I hope a lot of people that are listening out there, regardless of what party you're on, give Democrats a chance in Utah, turn the state maybe purple or blue, at least get the balance, so that there's a balance like we were supposed to have in the Constitution, where there is both parties represented equally and everything
judge
else.
Me as a human, not as Democrat. I could easily go switch affiliation next month. That's not how, I want to be judged. I want to be judged as a human that would listen, and yes, I identify as a Democrat. There's no doubt about it. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
But, find the humans that do the right thing for our country. And that's, and if you are one of those humans, for God's sake, raise your hand and get involved.
And vote.
It is
Register
needed.
to vote.
Register to vote. Vote for me.
There you go. And Stormy, give us your website so people can look up there, get to know you better. And then what are some ways people can help you?
Well, I'm just starting to raise funds for the campaign. And I'm brand new at this. So, just starting. I launched my website today, votestormysimon.com. Any donations would be great to help me take this county to a more diverse level. You can, and that's really where I need the support. If you are in Chula County or even Utah, volunteers. You can volunteer there. I need all kinds of help. Running a campaign is not easy, and that's what I'm learning. So, well, I am. I know people probably have a different words I should be using, but that's the truth. This is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And volunteers are needed. Help is needed, and money is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I need all of those things. And you can do all of them on stormysimon.com. My podcast and just my personal ideas and blogs are on stormysimon.com. On every social media platform, I'm always under Stormy Simon. And I love to engage with folks with or without politics. And, all sorts of support is needed. And most importantly, vote.
There you go. They register to vote. People care. This is going to be a watershed year. This is going to be something that's very challenging. Like I said, we're still in the honeymoon phase of this virus and the economic collapse we are going to be dealing with. And we're going to need people that are smart leaders, people that can deal with the finances, deal with the health, deal with everything that's going on. And these are the people who are going to either save you or sink you in the next 2 years, because all politics are local. We're going to be looking for help for unemployment, for health resources, for food, everything else over the next few years, housing, et cetera, et cetera. This is a crisis unlike we have never seen before. And you really don't want the same people in office who brought us to this brink and may have made it worse when you really look at the thing of it. So it's definitely time for a sea change in local legislatures and nationally. So I encourage everybody to get out and vote. And you may have a lot of time to vote this year. So a lot of people are finding they've got plenty of time on their hands to vote. I encourage everyone, I always get my ballot ahead of time. I get an absentee ballot ahead of time, and I sit down and I go through all the names and I do research and I go, okay, who are these people? And I get to know people. So get to know Stormy better if you're in the Tooele area. Get out, register to vote, make your vote count, because if you're not at the table, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. There you go.
On the menu.
Williams. So thanks to my audience for tuning in. Thanks to Stormy for being with us today. And be sure to go to thecvpn.com. You subscribe to online podcasts over there. There's over 500 episodes. So there's plenty of content for you can take and do. Be sure to go to theresistanceradio.com. You can subscribe to the podcast there as well. Share the podcast with your friends, neighbors, relatives. If you're listening to the audio version of this on the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, et cetera, iHeartRadio, you can see the video version of our chat with Stormy and other great interviewees on youtube.com/Chris Voss. Hit that bell notification so you get all the notifications of everything we do. Thanks to my audience again. Stay safe, wear your mask, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys so much.